Ukraine's $240,000 drone swarm destroys $140 million Russian strategic bombers in minutes. Today, Ukraine conducts one of the most cost-efficient and tactically precise deep strike operations of the war, converting roughly $240,000 of drones, relays, and intelligence into more than $140 million of losses for the Russian strategic aviation fleet. The mission depends not on brute force, but on exploiting a small digital oversight, an uncorrected factory default access password, inside one of Russia's most heavily defended aircraft facilities, demonstrating how modern warfare increasingly turns on software, signal discipline, and the ability to adapt. As two Tu-95 MS strategic bombers sit inside their hangar in Taganrog, their fate is already sealed by a swarm of low-cost FPV drones navigating the freezing air above the Sea of Azov. To understand how the destruction unfolds, the story begins from the moment the swarm first enters the battle space. At 5:01 AM, a 5LB FPV quadcopter spirals through the cold air above Taganrog, rolling sharply to avoid bursts from a Pantsir S-1, whose twin 30mm cannons are firing nearly 4,000 rounds per minute. The operator has seconds to act. The hangar door is in motion, and once it closes, the opportunity to strike the $45 million Tu-95 MS bomber inside will be gone. But this moment did not begin here. The chain of events was already in motion just over a minute earlier. 94 seconds earlier, at roughly 4:58 AM, the drones had lifted from the Ukrainian coastline and begun fighting the elements that threatened to exhaust them before reaching the target. The swarm of 20 drones rose into an 18-knot crosswind, each 5LB frame buffeted by turbulent air. With outdoor temperatures at 23 degrees Fahrenheit, their lithium polymer batteries faced increased internal resistance, draining around 15% faster than normal. Operators compensated with higher throttle inputs to maintain stable flight. To reduce exposure to long-range detection, the drones descended to roughly 30 feet above the Sea of Azov, skimming the wave tops. At this altitude, the curvature of the Earth blocks long-range radar line of sight, allowing the drones to close the distance without appearing on strategic radars. However, flying low reduces radar visibility at the cost of increased thermal detectability. To counter this, the drones used a biomimetic flight algorithm based on footage of local bird movement around Taganrog. Instead of a clean military formation, the swarm wove with the wind, drifting slightly out of sync with one another. On a thermal scope, their collective signature resembled a small flock of birds, rather than a coordinated drone attack. 3 miles offshore, a real bird nearly broke the illusion. A steppe eagle identified one of the rear drones as a territorial intruder and dove at high speed. The operator saw the incoming strike on his low-resolution feed and executed a rapid roll, forcing the drone inverted before righting it. The eagle missed by inches, and the drone returned to formation. Moments later, the swarm crossed into Russian airspace. At 5:02 AM, as the drones neared the Beriv aircraft plant, the S-400 battery's 91 N6E radar began resolving a composite return. Individual FPV drones were too small for consistent long-range tracking, but clustered flight produced a single low-altitude signature resembling a cruise missile. Following automated threat identification protocols, the battery launched a 40 N6 interceptor missile, a weapon normally reserved for high-speed aerial threats. The missile, costing between $1.2 million and $2 million, accelerated rapidly toward what it perceived as a streamlined target. But the FPV swarm's speed and flight pattern worked in its favor. The 40 N6 is optimized for large radar cross-sections and predictable trajectories. The slow-moving, low-flying drones offered neither. The missile passed above the swarm, and its proximity fuse triggered a near airburst, sending a shockwave through the formation. The resulting shockwave destabilized 3 of the drones, slamming them out of the sky. They lost lift, hit the water, and vanished from the operator's screens. The remaining 17 drones adapted immediately. Their operators activated a dispersion protocol, scattering flight paths across multiple vectors. This fragmentation further degraded the radar's ability to perceive them as a single entity. Individual drones became faint, inconsistent returns, and the S-400's fire control logic discarded them as clutter. The swarm advanced toward the inner perimeter. By 5:03 a.m., the drones had entered the range of the Pantsir S-1 mounted on the roof of the assembly hall. The Pantsir's engagement radar, designed to track small targets at close range, acquired the drones quickly. Twin 30mm cannons opened fire, launching tungsten fragmenting rounds into the sky. Operators maneuvered the drones through a maze of smokestacks and industrial structures, using the buildings to break the radar line of sight and reduce incoming fire. Turbulence around the structures pushed the drones unpredictably, and pilots compensated constantly. One drone became isolated and nearly trapped. A burst of fire crossed directly in front of it. With no lateral escape path, the operator advanced at full throttle, threading the drone through a narrow gap between a large maintenance billboard and a concrete pillar. A near miss vibrated the drone and cracked its lens, but it stayed airborne and continued toward the hangar. The operators then exploited a known mechanical limitation. The Pantsir's guns and sensors cannot elevate to cover a narrow cone directly above the turret. The drones climbed sharply into this blind zone. A moment later, cannon fire ceased. Not because the drones had escaped, but because the Pantsir completed its ammunition cycle and required a short reload interval. The roughly 12-second reload window created a crucial opening. At 5:04 a.m., the hangar lights illuminated the silhouettes of two Tu-95 MS bombers, together valued at $90 million. Workers scrambled as alarms echoed across the facility. Realizing the Pantsir had paused and the hangar was opening, the Russian commander ordered the electronic warfare unit to maximum output. The Krasuka 4 system was activated, projecting targeted noise across communication bands, typically used by UAVs. Within seconds, Ukrainian operators saw their video feeds degrade into severe interference. Telemetry flickered and then dropped. The drones were not being burned out or disabled. The EW system was saturating specific frequencies with noise, overwhelming receivers. This forced the onboard fallback logic to activate. Each FPV drone used a simplified frequency-agile communication system capable of hopping across standard UAV bands, around 900 MHz, 2.4 GHz, and 5.8 GHz, dozens of times per second to avoid constant jamming. At the same time, a fixed-wing relay drone positioned offshore maintained a tight-beam directional link to operators, capturing whatever data packets the drones could transmit and reassembling coherent control signals. This system did not restore perfect clarity, but it restored enough for manual control. One drone, unable to stabilize in the turbulent air inside the jamming zone, drifted into a light pole. The others pressed forward toward the hangar door, now open wide enough to admit them. At 5:05 a.m., 10 drones crossed the threshold. Inside the hangar, airflow was chaotic. Pilots made rapid adjustments to avoid collisions with beams and equipment. Russian personnel attempted to defend the aircraft with small arms. One soldier raised an Igla-S launcher, but at such close range, its seeker could not lock onto a target. Rifle rounds ricocheted against steel beams, generating hazards for those inside, but producing little effect on the agile drones. The drones prioritized critical support equipment, rather than the aircraft fuselages. One drone targeted a cart containing industrial oxygen cylinders used for welding. Its shaped charge detonated, rupturing the tanks. The sudden release of compressed gas generated an intense, oxygen-rich burn that rapidly heated nearby components. Positioned directly above this ignition point was the wing root of the first Tu-95 MS. Liquid JP-8 is stable, but rising heat can cause vapor pockets inside the tank to ignite. Flames spread along wiring channels beneath the wing surface, forcing crew members to retreat. Another drone identified a rack of Ki-55 training missiles beneath the second bomber's left wing. These units were training variants, but their casings and solid propellant components remained highly sensitive to heat and impact. The drone's explosive charge ruptured one casing, causing a violent burn that weakened the structure supporting the bomber's wing. As temperatures climbed beyond tolerances for aircraft-grade aluminum, the wing lost its load-bearing integrity. The NK-12 engine attached to it collapsed onto the hangar floor, crushing equipment and rupturing additional fuel lines. The remaining drones concentrated on disabling the NK-12 engines on both bombers, the most difficult components for Russia to replace under sanctions. While individual FPV warheads are small, their focused charges and impact speed are sufficient to breach engine housings, fragment turbine assemblies, and ignite internal fires. 6 coordinated impacts destroyed critical components that cannot be easily replaced under current sanctions. 8 hours later, firefighting teams extinguished the last flames. Inside, the facility resembled a skeletal frame of twisted beams and scorched machinery. 2 Tu-95 MS bombers were total losses, valued at $90 million, and infrastructure, including calibration tools, machinery, overhead cranes, and specialized wiring, sustained an additional $50 million in damage, bringing total Russian losses to more than $140 million. Ukrainian expenditures remained approximately $240,000, eliminating roughly a quarter of Russia's strategic bomber modernization capacity for an estimated 18 months, an effective return on investment of about 58,000%. As smoke dispersed, a charred fragment of a propeller blade settled in the snow outside the factory gate, a quiet symbol of the vulnerability even the most heavily defended military assets face. Modern warfare no longer rewards the side with the largest budget, but the side that exploits overlooked weaknesses, adapts quickly, and delivers precise effects with tools previously dismissed as insignificant. The question now is whether Russia can strengthen its defenses before Ukraine demonstrates again how small platforms, smart tactics, and targeted exploitation can reshape the balance of a much larger battlefield. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this.